Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is Energy Audit Thursday. It's Energy Audit Thursday. I'm going to welcome you back to Life Lessons with Dr. Sheila Little. If you're new here, I'm Dr. Sheila Little. Listen, today we're talking about truth telling, right? Truth telling as the key to truth telling is the key to unlocking is the unlocking key. All right. Truth telling is the unlocking key. Listen, your self talk is either your prison or your permission slip. All right. Too many of us are stuck, not because of outside forces, you guys, but because of this internal voice that says we're not enough, we're not ready, right? Or we're not worthy. And today's life lesson is really about confronting the inner critic, right? That it factor that I talk about and stop it now. All right. And it stands for our identity and our self talk. And within that self talk is this inner critic that we need to build a different relationship with, right? And so we're stepping into your true identity on this Energy Audit Thursday. Listen, stop rehearsing the lies that you have really adopted to survive, right? And really start rewriting the truth that will set you free. All right. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. I want you to join me, right, for the next 45 minutes, right, while we explore how these internalized voices of our parents, of our teachers, of society, of culture has really shaped how we see ourselves, how we speak to ourselves, right? And how telling yourself the truth really unlocks everything. Today's life lesson, we're digging into one powerful idea, and that idea is that your self talk is either your prison or your permission slip. All right. It's either your prison or your permission slip. So let's think about it, right? What have you been telling yourself on repeat? All right. What have you been telling yourself on repeat? What voice, right, do you really hear when you're tired, when you're afraid, or when you're trying something new? All right. And does that voice really speak life into you? Or does it limit you? Okay, let's just be honest on this morning. All right, because today we're confronting the inner critic, right? We're confronting that voice, which is this inner critic, right? We're asking, what belief do you adapt to survive, and what truth are you really reclaiming on this morning? Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome back to Life Lessons with me, right? Uh Dr. Sheila Little. All right, Dr. Sheila Little, the creator of the Stop It Now method. My why for this session is that, you know, to really help you guys recognize, right, how inherited voices and self talk has created these internal blocks. All right. And to really show you how telling yourself the truth is the first step to really reclaiming your power. And I know it's scary to be honest with ourselves. And listen, there is a part of life where we in a sense lie, right? This is like vision, right? Visioning ourselves, setting goals for our future, right? This is a very much, you know, lie, right? I'm projecting this mistruth or this vision into the future, and I don't really know if it's true, right? I'm holding on to faith with that. All right. And in a sense, you have to understand who do you need to become to make that happen. So in the becoming of me, right, I'm acting this way, right? I'm acting this person so that I can rewire my nervous system to believe this thing, right? That's not the truth we're talking about today. The truth we're talking about today is that thing you're running from, right? The thing that's keeping you small. All right. Not the thing you're running into, but the thing you're running from. All right. And we want to get the courage just on this morning to really confront it. All right. The disclaimer for this morning is listen, this session will help you to become aware of your self talk patterns and how they've shaped your identity. All right. But we know that insight without action doesn't unlock freedom, you guys. So you must take aligned steps and shift from this internal shame to really self affirming, right? To self affirmation. Be willing to tell the truth, all right? Even if it's to yourself, even when it's uncomfortable, right? Be willing to tell the truth because the truth will make you free. Again, I give the analogy of, you know, when you do MapQuest or something like that and you're on this journey, and this is really for people who really trying to change their life, right? I say either you're running from something or you're running towards something, but you can't do both. And a lot of people that I work with and a lot of people that I see are truly running from something, right? And they in this the deception is that they feel like they're running to something, but you're not, right? You're really running from, right, my old circumstance, my old relationships, the hurt, the pain, right? Uh my parents, right? I don't want to be like my mom. I don't want to be like my daddy, right? All these things that you don't want. And if your language is, I don't want this, I don't want that, then that's a key indicator that you are actually running away from something. You're not running to anything. All right. And as a consequence of running away, you may end up running into the exact thing that you're trying to run away from. All right. Okay, so good morning. Let's take our deep breath. All right, let's take our deep breath. I got this thing where I want to take our deep breath within the first 5 minutes of the session. All right, that is my goal, right? As I go to assess, and readjust the life lesson every month, and I do my audits, right? It's like, okay, what can I change? And I want to get to this breath within the first 5 minutes. Okay, so let's take our deep breath. And I want to let you know that this is your time, right? No pressure, just your presence, right? Just your presence on this morning as we come together as community. And again, I want to welcome you back to Life Lessons, right? With Dr. Sheila Little. Life Lessons is a part of Project Life. We know that Project Life is where we turn theory into practice, right? A lot of conversation is happening, right? A lot of theory, a lot of what should you be doing and all of that. And we want to put that into practice this year and beyond, right? And how do we do that? Is through these life lessons that I deliver every day to you in some way, shape, or form. All right. So good morning, good morning, good morning. Drop a word in the chat. Let me know how you feeling on this morning. I'm feeling pretty good. I just got this signal that we're going to have a storm. So preparing for that. um yeah, change to the office. As you see, the scenery in the back is different, so that means that there's a whole lot of shifts. So I've been coming on like in the middle of 9 o'clock because I'm trying to get the tech right, but it'll all work itself out. I'm just excited to be here for another series. We're talking about unlocking your potential in this month of June, right? Unlocking your potential. That was the theme for Shaping Solutions when I first started Shaping Solutions, right? It was Shaping Solutions, right? Unlock your potential. And again, the unlock your potential was one of those vague things that when I would meet people, it's like, well, what does that really mean, right? And then I also share with you guys how people used to tell me you have so much potential, right? So really, this whole series is about how to unlock that. And this week, we're talking about uncovering, right, the what's been holding you back, right? Uncovering what's been holding you back. That is the you in unlock. All right. So, who is this session for on today? As we're talking about Energy Audit Thursday, and we're talking about this inner critic or this self talk. All right. So, I'm talking to a person who is exhausted by their inner critic. All right, a person who struggles to trust your own decisions, and you really doubt your worth, right? You've inherited voices again from your parents, from your culture, from your religion that's still really running your inner world. And you probably don't even realize that this inner critic is accumulation of the voices that you've heard over time, right? And you want to really shift from self-doubt to self-trust. All right. Listen, the core of this message is that your self talk is really shaping your identity. And often, you guys, it isn't even your own voice, right? As you become adult, I want you to think about, as you have become this adult, have you really updated, right, this inner critic, right? Have you really understood what your voice is and who the you is outside of the noise? All right, listen, many people walk around echoing beliefs that they never consciously chose, right? Right? Like, I'm too much, I'm not smart enough, or I'm not pretty, or I'm not spiritual enough. I have to be perfect, right? To be loved, right? To be accepted. And again, I want you to know that it may not come up in that specific language, but we see it in the behaviors. Because one of the things that we need to realize is that the mind is the interpreter, right? So it's interpreting what the nervous system of the signal that the nervous system is giving it. So when this nervous system has been trained for survival mode, right, and has been trained to keep you safe, all right, the I'm too much may show up and you shrinking, right? So maybe you're not speaking your truth. Maybe you're not saying the things that come up, right? Because you don't want to be what too much, because you've probably heard that. Um, I'm not smart enough, or I'm not pretty, or I'm not spiritual enough, right? So this not enoughness, right, is causing you maybe not to do some things because or maybe it's causing you to overcompensate in other areas, right? Doing a lot of stuff because you don't feel enough in your own skin. And I have to be perfect to be loved. That's the performative part of you, right? That's just performing. What can I do? What can I do? What can I do? What can I say? What can I prove to this person, place, or thing that I'm worthy? And I just want to remind you that you are worthy, just as you are, right? Because essentially because you are a child of God, but if that's not your philosophy, it's because you have these 750 trillion cells that's working on your behalf at all times, which makes you amazing, right? I want you to know that these internalized messages, though, what I call the it factor, or this inner talk, right, becomes invisible scripts that really detect your decisions, right, your emotions, and your self-worth. All right. So why truth telling really unlocks your power? Because telling yourself the truth means confronting these false identities, right? These false narratives that you carry for safety and survival. All right. For example, you may have believed that you have to earn, that I have to earn my worth, right? That was something that you believed because of approval. That was survival of a child in your childhood, right? Like you did have to earn a lot of stuff in your childhood, right, as a form of survival, but you don't have to do that anymore, right? Like you're an adult now, right? So it's time to rewrite that. You don't have to earn your worth. You are worthy. All right. You may have stayed silent because you've learned that uh expressing your needs will cause conflict, right? So now you may not be expressing your needs equals conflict. So now you may not say stuff because you just don't want to be in conflict with other people, right? Right. And then you overachieve because you were praised for performance and not for personalhood. This is those overachievers who really, got the good grades, was the athlete and all of that. But the underbelly of that was really, to get the attention, right? Because you may have not received the attention if you didn't do those things. All right. Listen, naming the belief is the first step in really the first step towards claiming your voice, all right, and rewriting your identity. It's not about positive thinking at this point, you guys. It's really about aligning yourself in truth telling. And I always try to really, I'm not trying to debunk the positive thinking thing, because I do think that positive thinking is more optimism than it is um in the language of positive thinking, if that makes sense. So I may say something that may not appear positive, but I'm optimistic that creating this conflict is going to be in the best interest of me and the people involved, right? So the actual behavior may not be positive, right? It may not seem positive thinking, but I'm optimistic that if I have this story, if I change this story, if I bring this up to you, that we're going to resolve this issue and it's going to be in the best interest of for us both, right? And so I think that we really need to understand when we're talking about positive thinking, that's not always good, loving language, right? It's the optimism that if we have this conflict, that this relationship will still survive. If I stand up in my truth, that I'm going to, and that causes some conflict, or that causes some dis-ease, right? That overall it's going to be in the best interest, right? So life is more about being optimistic than it is about in terms of like when we talk about this positive thinking, like as if everything that I'm supposed to say is supposed to be good and positive. That's just not that's just not life, right? Life is consumed with the good and the bad, right? The ups and the downs, the left and the rights, the negative and the positive. That's why you're able to watch me right now, because of the ones and zeros, right? The zeros, the ones and zeros in technology, right? the negative and the positive charge just coming together and making a whole. So to think that the only thing that you want to hear is positive, positive, positive is really a false truth, right? Right. But we do want to be optimistic that whatever we're doing, right, is working for our good, even though it doesn't feel good at the time. All right. All right. So, the energy audit that I want you to do on this morning is, whose voice is it that's in your head? I want you to think about, who's this voice that's in my head, right? What would you say? Would you say that that voice is a friend, right? I want you to ask yourself, is this voice in my head a friend? And then what truth, right, do you actually believe deep down, right? Deep down, but you're afraid to own, all right? That you know deep down, but you're afraid to own it. All right. Why this is a turning point and kind of like the close to this, because on Mondays we talked about stories and triggers. So we saw the roots of disempowerment, of the disempowering narrative, right? And really I challenge you to change that. And then on Tuesday we talked about the obstacles, right? And the opportunity cost of that we face when we stay silent, right, and stagnated. And then yesterday we talked about how to honor, uh, we honored survival by really looking at our habits and saw their limitations, right? So instead of judging that on Gratitude Shift Wednesday, what we did was looked at those patterns and those paradigms and said, hey, thank you, right, for getting me here, but I understand that you won't take me there. But today, right now, it's time to interrupt because we've given it its due diligence. We've uncovered the story. We've talked about the cost, right? We've given it its gratitude, right? But now it's time to interrupt this pattern, right? Now it's time to really interrupt this old story, by naming the falseness of it, right? And declaring what's true for what, for who, for yourself. And what may be true for you and what may be true for somebody else is totally different. So this is the shift from unconscious identity to really empowered, what, embodied empowerment. All right. All right. So our quote for this morning is, your self-talk is either your prison or your permission slip. All right. Listen, on yesterday, we discussed the patterns that really keep you on pause. So today we're going to confront that voice, because those patterns, that is your inner critic. All right. So I have a client who would shrink her ideas before they even left her journal, you guys. Like, as she's journaling, she's like saying, nope, nope, nope. If you work with me, I give this activity on the first couple of days that we work together, or first couple of weeks. And it's like, dream big, right? And one of the things that I challenge people to do is, when that voice comes up and like, oh, you can't do that, you're too old, to really challenge that, right? Challenge that voice. Because if you start to shrink, right, before you even shrink the dream, before we even talk about it, you're not living in your fullness, right? And we need that capacity as we move and change our life. So I had a client who recognized that she would shrink her ideas before they even left her journal. She'd say, no one really cares what I have to say. So that voice wasn't really hers, though, that she was hearing as she was journaling. It was her father's criticism, really internalized as her voice, or disguised as her voice. And when she began to really tell herself the truth, right, she realized that she was really a wise woman and that she was called for something different. And once she could step into that, you guys, guess what? Her life actually unlocked, right? She finally published her work. All right. She finally started to write the thing that she wanted to write, you guys. So I want to go into our heart moment this moment, because I think that a lot of us we're probably not shrinking as we write, but as we go to demonstrate and stand up for ourselves, we're probably noticing that we're not standing bold, right, in who we are. So here's our heart check-in. What's one belief that you've been telling yourself that is not really yours? All right. You know that that's something that your mama told you, or your daddy told you, or maybe the bully at school, or maybe something the teacher told you that you're holding on to, that's holding you back, that's limiting you, or that you have identified with as true for your life, right? Right. And maybe it's an old boyfriend, maybe it was your first love. I don't know what it is, or who it is. When I just said that, I think about this guy that I used to talk to when I was younger. I have to be like 13 or 14 or whatever. And he talked about my voice a lot. And I'm going to say this, guys, but I want you guys to hear this with soft ears. And Okay, so he said, so we would talk on the phone because back in the day, you talked on the phone a lot, right? You didn't really do a lot of face-to-face conversation. But there'll be those times where we would sneak out and like, I don't know, go visit your friend or something. And you weren't supposed to. So I told my granddaddy I was somewhere else and I really wasn't. But anyway, this guy told me on one occasion, like, I can talk to you all day, but I can't look at you for a long time. Right. So when he said that to me at that time, in my woundedness, guess what I thought he was saying? Right? That I was just like this unattractive person, right? So again, I'm like 13, 14 years old. And he was like, I could talk to you maybe 13, 14. Yeah. I wasn't 15 yet. So he was like, I could talk to you all day because your voice is so, soothing and nice, but I can't look at you for a long time. Now, remind you, I already had this image issue, right? And when he said that, I was like, what? Now let's fast forward to my adult self, right? And really like, ran into him or whatever, asked him, like, do you remember when you said, because this was one of those things that I had been told, right? That imprinted how I saw myself. But mind you, he wasn't the first person to do that. So it was like this accumulation of these small little things that was said to me. But that was one of the things. So when we got older, what I realized is that he wasn't even saying like, I can't look at you because you're not attractive. He was really saying like, I can't look at you for a long time because of what it made him want to do with me, right? In the sense, like, he respected me, we were friends, and it made him want to, go into some behaviors that young people just shouldn't get into. So but that was like, wow, right? I didn't even think that that was even something that he felt, right? This was a good friend or whatever. But anyway, when you're in your heart moment, I want you to think about what's one belief that you tell yourself that isn't really yours. And that one was something I told myself. It wasn't mine. It was something that gave to me, but I filtered everything I heard about myself through that, even when that guy told me that at 13 and 14. And I wasn't able to really clear that up until I was like, I don't know, close to at the end of my 30s, maybe. All right. So listen, most of your self-talk isn't original, you guys. It's inherited or trained. All right. It's inherited or trained. But here's the good news, right? What was trained can be what? Retrained, right? What you learn can be unlearned, and then you can learn something different. All right. So the stories you repeat, right, help to shape your identity, right? But when you align your voice with your truth, right, your decisions and your relationships, wait, when you align your voice with truth, your decisions, your relationships, and results, guess what? They start to shift. All right. They start to shift. Listen, you don't have to earn freedom through performance. You can actually receive that, you guys, by reclaiming your voice. If that makes sense, put an 8 in the chat for me or heart in the chat for me. Listen, neuroscience has confirmed that your brain actually strengthens whatever thoughts you rehearse. All right. Whatever thoughts you rehearse, that your brain will strengthen that. So self-affirming talk actually rewires these neural pathways, right? From courage, for courage and clarity. And we have to know that Pashana said, okay, retrain with the truth. Exactly. And here's the thing, the retraining process, like you guys know, I'm going to start a series in July on YouTube of meditations, like the night meditations. But I really do feel like we need to take time, like when you're driving in a car, maybe listening to, right, some affirmation when you're going to sleep, right before you go to sleep. Maybe you don't have to listen to it all night, but just some affirmations, listening to your voice, right? These are the courageous things that you may think is crazy, but you need to take, we all get the same 24 hours, right? So we need to take the time that we have, right, and invest it in ourselves. And so recording on your phone your voice and saying some truth to yourself and probably listening to that while you're brushing your teeth, while you're in the shower, right, versus listening to somebody else, right, is really going to help this, what neuroscience says, right, the brain to strengthen whatever it is that you rehearse. All right. All right. And if you want help with that, or you want, to record yourself, or you want, like, book a session with me and we can do that. Okay. Listen, truth telling is yourself. Truth telling to yourself is the boldest self-care activity that you could ever practice. All right. And I know that again, it's hard to tell the truth when we're living in shame and when we're guilty, right? This is it makes us cringe. It makes us feel like I just can't do that. We feel like the world is going to fall apart. But remember, that's just the nervous system saying that. Now, I did see this post yesterday and I sent it to my brother and I sent it to a couple of other friends because it was so funny. And I'm gonna post it in the Elevate Life group. But so it was this guy, it was Omar and Dr. Umar, and he was telling like the people who cheated, the wives who was cheating, the women who was cheating on with married men. He was telling them like, go tell that woman you cheated on her. It was just so funny. But then it's a guy pop up and was like, don't do that. Don't go tell that woman that like you're like, it was funny. All right. Now, that is not the bold truth telling that I'm saying. I'm saying being honest with yourself. Okay. This is not a declaration of going and, telling everybody your sins and all of that. I'm not asking you to atone. All right. And I think that that's the difference between telling the truth, right? And being honest with ourselves. That's the atoning part is however you want to do that. All right. And I think that even I had this conversation with my thought partner yesterday. I think that so many of us is looking for atonement. Now, if you don't know what atonement is, that's the behavior, right? So that is um what people would do to show their they that they have sinned or that they're doing something different, right? So there's an atoning process that I think that people look for. Even when somebody says like I'm sorry, a person is looking for them to atone for that sin, right? And atoning is really like more of a spiritual thing between you and God, but I think we've made it like behavioral. Anyway, so I'm not suggesting that you guys atone for anything. It's just being honest. Like if you're sad, say that, right? If you're upset, say that, right? If you're unhappy, say that, right? Don't jump over the emotion that you're feeling, right? Let's sit in it and let's do some radical acceptance because again, I was saying this earlier, if you have MapQuest, it's going to ask you a question. You trying to get to a place and it's going to say like where are you at now, and so being honest about where you are, I think it's going to be so important to your healing process. All right. If that makes sense, put an 8 in the chat. Now we know that um, the stop it framework, the it in stop it now is all about the identity and the inner critic. All right. So we're examining how self-talk really creates your identity. All right. And it's so important to your identity and who you think you are. All right. It's time to really stop letting your past shape your present inner voice. And a lot of us have allowed our past to be a part of this present person that we are. And guess what that makes? That makes room for us to continue to repeat our past. Okay. And so we need to really change this inner narrative or how we're responding to this inner critic, one, and then updating our language. All right. So here are some essential truths that you need to know really about this identity and self talk all around uncovering what's holding you back. All right. Listen, your identity was often shaped by survival, not sovereignty. All right. So many people form the identity in their environment where they had to adapt to be accepted. All right. So a lot of us had to adapt to be accepted. Me being, again, I'm going to use myself in this case, me being very smart when I was younger, right? Very curious, right? I asked a lot of questions, right? I could pick up on things really fast in a home where that wasn't the norm, right? So I had to adapt. Like I had to, in a sense, shut that curiosity down, right? Not ask as many questions, not really show up as boldly because it made people, in a sense, the not like me, or I got teased and I got bullied a lot, right? And so the thing that it made me do, and I got teased at school, I got bullied, I got kicked all the way home, right? Kicked in my butt all the way home, right? Sometimes I would fight though, and I would beat the people that I would fight, but I just deemed myself not a fighter. That was my thing. Like I just don't want to fight you. It wasn't that I couldn't fight, right? I had brothers that I was fighting all the time, but it was like I just don't want to fight, right? And so I had to adapt to be accepted. All right. So adapting over so long taught my brain to what? To play small. And so then when I went to school, that was like my outlet. Like I can be the smart person in the classroom or I can be the all A student, but there still was this separation between me as an educated person. My cousin laughed. My cousin Bernice laughed at me. Um, Yes. So there was a separation between me, the smart me, and then the person me, right? So I had to separate those two. And I see that a lot with my clients, right? This adapting to be accepted, whatever that adaptation was, all right, or to perform to be protected. Right. So I work with a lot of people who had to perform to be protected. What does that performance look like again? In school, maybe financially perform, maybe uh be the strong one, right? Whatever the performance is, but what what you call you in that point might have been a defense mechanism. So what you now call you may have been this defense mechanism, and it's not really your true self. And that is why we're here to really uncover that. All right, to really see like if this behaviors that you have now, is this really a defense mechanism that was created by my previous environment, or is it really me? All right, and is this ease that I'm feeling, right? Is this more of a misalignment with who I am, right? That I need to get back in alignment with. All right. I need to get back in alignment with myself. All right. Listen, self talk is the operating system to your identity. So every thought you speak inwardly becomes a command to your nervous system. Right. So if your internal dialogue is harsh, if it's dismissive, if it's full of doubt, guess what you're doing? You're training your body to really respond in fear instead of in faith. All right. So we can say that we're faithful, we go to church, all of that. But then if you're listening to your internal talk and if it's harsh, dismissive, and full of doubt, guess what? You're training your body though to still live in fear, right? Which is a conflict between your divinity or what you're praying to God for because your language is not in alignment with your prayer. All right. All right. Number three, the inner critic isn't you. It's a compilation of what? All of the internalized voices. You've heard me say this maybe every week because I really want you to get it that your inner critic may sound like your own thoughts, but it's often inherited from your parents' disapproval. If you was a sports person, the coach's criticism, right? Cultural conditioning, right? Teachers and things like that. Listen, you don't have to keep repeating those voices. You can choose. Choose to your truth instead. All right. All right. Another thing is silence reinforces the false self. Again, we talked about this silence really enforcing shame and guilt, and it also enforces this soft self. So when you avoid expressing your needs, dreams, and truths, guess what? To keep the peace, you're actually reinforcing a false identity. So staying silent isn't neutral, you guys. And I want you to really get this part. A lot of us feel like staying silent is neutral, like I'm going to avoid the conflict, but it's not doing that. It's actually a vote for the version of you that doesn't believe you're worthy. So when you stay quiet, you are actually communicating something, right? Now, you may not be communicating that to the person that you're staying silent or the situation you're staying silent about, but you're absolutely communicating to yourself that you believe that you're not worthy and that your voice doesn't matter. And then conflictually, you want somebody else to what? To believe in your voice and to make you feel like you matter or to treat you like you matter. But you're training yourself not to do that when you stay silent about situations that you know you should speak up for, right? And advocate for yourself. Number five, you can't change what you don't name. Again, you what does Jay-Z say? It's gonna come to me. I say it every week. You can't reveal, you can't heal what you don't reveal. Okay, listen, if you want to shift your how you feel, listen, you must confront what you've been saying to yourself. Unspoken shame becomes unconscious sabotage, you guys. So start naming the scripts you've been living by, all right? All right, because unspoken shame becomes unconscious sabotage, all right? And again, we don't have to feel bad about shame because shame could have been passed down to us in our DNA. We understand that our forefathers had to experience a lot of shame. So we know that shame is already, we was born, right, with shame in us, but we don't have to identify with that shame. And we will have situations that may trigger that shameful feeling in us, but we don't have to identify with it and make it ours, right? And in some way, now I'm ashamed of me, right? You have nothing to be ashamed of as an adult, right? We make mistakes and we have to forgive ourselves. Now, that doesn't mean that the thing you did is not going to hurt somebody else or didn't hurt somebody else and that they may never talk to you again. That may be a consequence of your action, but that's just the law. That's just the law coming into effect, right? The law of cause and effect. All right. But just because a person won't talk to you and they didn't like your behavior, which they have 100% right to not like what you did or how you showed up in their life, right? They have 100% right not to deal with you, but that doesn't make you a bad person. People get the right to choose what they want to do. And just because a person is choosing not to deal with you in a certain way doesn't make you a bad person. It just means that you stepped outside their comfort zone, you cross their boundaries, and they get a right to hold the wall or hold that boundary and say, you're a person that I don't want to deal with, right? But you don't have to adapt to the version of, you don't have to, in a sense, buy into that version or that perspective that they have of you. All right. All right. I know that sounds a little harsh, but you don't, right? You don't. Yeah, along the way, you're going to hurt people and people are going to hurt you, right? But also along the way, you're going to bless people and people are going to bless you. And you get to choose, right? Which one of these narratives do I want to hold on about who I am? Okay. Because we're not perfect, right? Nobody's perfect. And we're not going to always do things perfectly. And things are not going to be always done perfectly for us. All right. All right. And that's why we have to be compassionate with ourselves. Listen, self-talk creates self-image and self-image drives your behavior. So if you believe you're unworthy, listen, your behavior will mirror that even unconsciously. So when you shift your language, you shift your self-perception, and this actually leads to more aligned choices, boundaries, and boldness, you guys. All right. Another thing is self-betrayal begins when unchecked with unchecked self-talk. All right. So every time you override your needs to please someone else, all right, or shrink to avoid conflict, guess what? It begins in your head with your thoughts. So in your thoughts is saying, don't say that, right? They'll think you're too much. They're gonna think this, don't do that, right? So this voice is navigating how you're gonna show up, right? Listen, healing means listening to yourself first, right? So whatever that first thing was to say, right? Don't let the voice kind of in a sense talk you out of it. All right, because that's just your protective factor, not wanting to feel the pain. And guess what? If you need help before you actually had a conversation, then I encourage you to talk to somebody, have an accountability partner, run through that, right? Join Project Life where you can get in those coaching labs and you can actually practice, right? Having some of these difficult conversations before you actually go to the individual so you can feel comfortable, right? And standing up and advocating for you because that is a learned skill. All right. That is a learned skill. All right, listen, neuroplasticity is on your side. Again, science has proved that the brain can rewire itself. So your self-talk is not permanent, right? It's programmable. All right. So you can build a new default by practicing truth telling, truth-based affirmations and compassionate inner dialogue. All right. Number 9, permission to be is more powerful than pressure to perform. The permission to be is way more powerful than pressure to perform. Listen, you do not need to prove you are enough. All right. You've done that. You've been there. You've done that. Right. When your identity is rooted in worth, not works. All right. When your identity is rooted in worth, not works, guess what? You start to move from alignment, not from anxiety. So that shift will transform your energy too, right? It will transform your energy, your confidence, and guess what? Your clarity. All right. And last but not least, you teach others how to treat you by how you talk to yourself. All right. um Miss Bernice said, I need to take notes every time I watch you. Yes, yes. If you was in Project Life, you would actually have a notes that you can take because in Project Life this is all laid out and you actually get it in your email, right? Like a note book that you can take notes with. All right. But thank you for that. So listen, you teach others how to treat you by how you talk to yourself. I know that you think because you talk to yourself that nobody hears that. You know, I had to come to a place in life where I just had to realize that you can't say nothing about me that I ain't already said about myself. So I'm just gonna stop being offended by the things that people had to say about me, right? Because I know I got an annihilator. So you ain't finna say nothing about me that I ain't already said about myself, right? Maybe, just maybe, you're saying that about me because I've said it to myself. And you're just a projection of my own thoughts and belief about myself. So when I see you, I'm not even going to be mad at you for saying that thing. I'm going to say, well, now what's in me, right? If I get mad about it, or if I respond to it in a negative way, okay, what was that in me that made me respond so harshly to a person's opinion about me? That if I believe is not true. All right. Um, I'm gonna come back to this. You teach others how to treat you by how you talk to yourself. Listen, when you dismiss your voice, others learn to do the same. All right. But when you speak to yourself with respect, when you speak to yourself with love, when you speak to yourself with truth, guess what? You naturally start to set the standard and the expectation for how you'll be treated by the world, right? By the people around you. Now, let me give this caveat with that. If we're talking about 10 people, right? So naturally, just by default, maybe 3 people are going to respect you because there's 3 out of 7 people that's respectful. All right. So no matter how you talk to yourself, because this person deemed themselves respectful, they're going to respect you. All right. Because that's who they are integritiously. So 1, 2, or 3 people. All right. Now, the other 7 may start to mimic and treat you how you treat you. All right. So they may not uh, value you and all of the things. Right. Now, just say you start to talk to yourself different. Now, it's going to be 3 or 4 people that's going to naturally be disrespectful. Okay. Because they're just naturally disrespectful, right? So no matter how you treat yourself and no matter what you say to yourself, they may still come off unkind, unloving, and untruthful, okay? And that has nothing to do with you, all right? So this is not 100% rule, but it is like a 70-30, okay? Like you teach others how to treat you by how you talk to yourself, all right? All right, I just had to give that. A couple of non-negotiables that I want you to know, okay? A couple of non-negotiables that I want you to know. The inner critic really thrives in unawareness. So if you don't consciously name the inner critic, it becomes your narrator, all right? And many people are living their lives based on a voice of shame, of fear, and unworthiness, and they don't even know it. So I want you to shine a light on this inner critic on this morning, right? And give it language, right? Give that inner critic a name, right? So you can kind of disassociate with it. Another thing is self-talk is the root of every person's pattern. So whether it's procrastination, whether it's a self-sabotage, perfectionism, or people pleasing, I want you to know that every behavioral loop is anchored in identity level beliefs. All right. Who do you think you are? All right. And if you don't change the conversation on the inside, right, these patterns will keep repeating the same cycles on the outside of you. All right. A couple of more things. The brain believes in repetition, not just truth. So you could say affirmation all day, but if your dominant inner voice still repeats the old scripts or the old shame narratives, guess what? Those affirmations won't take root. So I want you to understand that transformation requires consistency, right? And intentionally rewiring, not just inspiration, right? Right. So you just not being inspired. It's the work on the other side to really transform, right? And transmute that energy. Couple of more things. Healing happens when your inner voice becomes a safe space, right? This is so important. We're trying to make safe environments on the outside of us by changing our relationships and cutting off people. Um, but we really need to be focusing on making a safe environment on the inside of us. All right. On the inside of us. All right. For many, the inner world is a battlefield. All right. It's so many of us that don't even want to be with ourselves because of the thoughts that's in our mind. And again, I'm talking about more mental health, then I'm talking about mental illness. All right. It's some people who don't want to even hear their own voices, right? That don't want to sit with their own self, that can't sit down and meditate for 2 or 3 minutes because they're bombarded by the noise in their head, right? So they would rather perform and stay active so they don't have to hear this. Listen, that inner world is a battlefield. And what if your mind became the sanctuary instead of a war zone? What if your mind became serenity instead of a war zone? Listen, you must show that self-compassion isn't a weakness, right? You have to show yourself that self-compassion is not a weakness. It's actually a powerful, all right? A safe inner voice gives you permission to show up fully. All right. And so retraining that voice is important. Listen, your identity isn't who you had to be, it's who you're becoming. All right. So I want you to release this whole idea of what you have done, have created who you are. No, your identity is who you are becoming. All right. And it's always going to be who you are becoming because you're not tied to your past. We have to start anchoring to our present. So many of you are still wearing masks that develop because of this childhood or because of this trauma, because of this old relationship, or because of this thing that happened, right? And so you're deeming yourself the achiever, the fixer, the strong one, right? The brokenhearted one, right? I want you to understand that these identities were survival strategies. They're not your soul's truth. All right. So identity is not fixed. It's unfolding like the truth. It's revealing. It's being revealed to you. Your identity is being revealed to you as you move and as you grow and develop. All right. Truth telling is the unlocking key. All right. So um you cannot coach, you cannot lead, and you cannot grow from a lie. All right. All right. Right? You just can't grow from a lie. All right. So there has to be some truth activation, all right, where you name the belief that you've been carrying and understand that it's really not yours. All right. This is what unlocking the door to real self-truth and empowerment is. All right. And then last but not least, uh self-trust can be rebuilt one word at a time. Okay. So you can speak, so you must speak to yourself. So you must speak to the part of you who feels like you've betrayed yourself too many times. So you must really re-speak to yourself, to the part of you that has betrayed yourself too many times. I want you to know that it's never too late to really rewrite this dialogue. All right. Each word of grace, of truth, and of alignment is a seed, what, for your new future. All right. So let's look at our biblical wisdom on this morning. Okay. So we have Psalms 51:6. All right. Yet you desire faithfulness even in the womb. You taught me wisdom in a sacred place. All right. In a secret place, right? Yet you desire faithfulness even in the womb. You taught me wisdom in that secret place. All right. What I want you to know is that God desires truth on the inside, and inner truth really creates outer transformation, you guys. Inner truth really creates outer transformation. All right. What does this mean in practical terms? Um, Hold on a second. I'm gonna come back to that. So in our promise verse, so our promise verse today is John 8:32. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free. Again, um, freedom begins with truth, right? And the truth of what? The truth to yourself. All right. So let's go to this biblical wisdom. All right. So yet you desire faithfulness even in the womb. You taught me wisdom in that secret place. Listen, this verse really speaks to the deep inner truth that God longs for. Okay. Not just this external behavior, but the integrity, right? The integrity and honesty of this inner world. All right. Hold on a second. All right. So you're not just meant to look put together on the outside. Guess what? You're meant to be aligned with truth on the inside. Okay. Listen, this session is about really turning inward to confront these lies that we've inherited, internalized, or repeated out of fear. All right. And the scripture really gently affirms that wisdom and transformation really starts in your secret place, right? Where your inner dialogue and identity is. All right. It really affirms that truth telling is a spiritual act of alignment, not just a mindset shift. All right. All right. And then John 18 and 32. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free. Again, this verse is just a spiritual anchor of this session. It connects directly to this lesson's core message, which is telling the truth to yourself becomes the key to unlocking everything. Listen, I want you to know it isn't just about theological truth. It's about personal and internal truth. It's the truth about who you really are, about who you believe who about what you believe you've survived, and about what no longer serves what you're becoming. All right. So the moment you really stop hiding from your story and start telling yourself the truth about your worth, your strength, and your value, you really start accessing a real freedom. All right. This is what Yahshua Messiah was pointing out here, that the truth isn't just about your mortality, right? It is liberation, and that liberation starts from where? From within you. All right. So it's really just about being honest with yourself about where you're at in your life. All right. When we think about truth in religious terms, right or wrong, I think that's where we get stuck. All right. Because it's not about whether it's right or wrong. It's about honoring the truth despite if it's right or wrong. But when you go to place a judgment on it, then what makes you hide your truth, because you feel like it's wrong. And so I need to hide this. And it's like, no, we're going to bear our truth. Now, if you want to consider that right or wrong, then that's your own judgment, right? But we're not even at right or wrong yet. Let's just honor the truth. All right. So again, when we often think about truth, we think about it in religious terms as right or wrong. But this verse really shows us that God is deeply interested in this internal narrative, not just in the sky watching us. He dwells within us, right? He dwells within you, desiring what? Truth, clarity, and alignment. All right. Truth, clarity, and alignment in our inner world. So this session really is about learning how to audit, right? This inner voice, identify what was broken, right, was borrowed, and was false. All right. And replacing it with your divine truth, which is what? You are worthy, you are free, and you are powerful. All right. Okay. All right. I love that, because one of the things that I really try to encourage people to do is to really stop judging stuff as right or wrong. And I always say, like, you don't have enough information. And I know that just makes people cringe when I say that. Like, I do have information. That was wrong. That person, what they said was wrong. And it's like, okay. All right. They were wrong. All right. They were right. Right. It's a bigger thing at play here. All right. One is what you're going to do about it. And two, if you're not honest about how you feel about the right or wrong. So here's the thing. If you're going to base your feelings on if you felt it was right or wrong, then you're not honoring your truth, right? If I felt bad about something and then I felt bad about feeling bad, right? If I felt bad about something, but I felt good about feeling bad, right? Like, this is the meta emotion that I'm talking about. Like, a lot of individuals um are not just being honest. Like I said, I'm gonna go back to this because I think that was a little confusing. I talked to you about the client that I was working with that was going through a breakup, and the client was jumping over her feelings about going through the breakup by making the person a bad person, right? So this person was bad for doing this thing to me, so they don't deserve my emotion. Well, now you're willing to lie to yourself and tell yourself you don't feel a feeling, that you feel because you're saying that what the person did was bad. And that's when we get caught up in this good and bad thing. It really starts to rob us of what we need to do to digest these peptides, these neuropeptides that's in our body that needs to be released. Because now the only way I'm going to feel is if the thing that I'm feeling about is quote unquote good for me to feel. And it's like, no, in this particular case with this client, guess what? You broke up with somebody that you've been with for 7 years. So that's going to hurt. Let's just sit right there, right? You're grieving a relationship. Now we can talk about what did this person do, right? And we can process that. And then all of that can come, but let's sit in the truth that you're hurting and you're grieving right now, right? And you don't have to deprive yourself of that because of the choices that this other person made. All right. All right, listen. Uh we have wrapped up this journey this week. Remember, I won't see you again until Monday. I will have a video in the Elevating Life group. So if you are not a part of that group, make sure you go join Elevating Life with Sheila Little so that you can get the video for Self-Validation Friday. But I won't be live, right? Because it's summer and I'm out here. And you out here too, right? Now I want to hold you hostage every morning over this summer, all right? But this week has been um progressive as we did layer by layer, right? Really talking about you can't heal what you hide. Again, we begun with the stories and triggers where we learn that the lies we've adapted to survive, right? Like I have to be stronger, I'm too much, really become silent agreements that we make with shame. All right. And then on Tuesday, we talked about the cost of silence and stagnation. Again, those we explore obstacles and opportunities that we faced emotionally, financially, and spiritually, and those consequences. And as the we talked about the obstacles and opportunity costs and face the emotional, financial, and spiritual consequences of muting our truth, right? When we, when we stay silent, we not only lose time, guess what? We lose our identity, we lose our peace, and we lose our possibility, all right? And what you don't say costs more than what you know. And then yesterday we talked about the patterns that keep you on pause, you guys, right? Really looking at those paradigms and those behaviors that once protected us. Like perfectionism, overgiving, and things like that, but now it's keeping you stuck. And then on today, Energy Audit Thursday, we talked about the truth telling is the unlocking key. This whole week we talked about how to uncover what's keeping us stuck, and guess what? It's these lies, all right? It's these lies. And so truth telling is the key. So on today, we face this self-talk and identity agreement directly, right? The if factor, our inner talk, is the echo chamber for the stories, for the cost, and for the patterns that we carry. But truth telling unlocks it, okay? And the key that turns shame into sovereignty, fear into freedom, all right? So when you tell the truth, you actually stop when you tell yourself the truth, your spirit stops whispering and really starts to what? Roar. Okay. All right. All right. So I got a question for you on today. What voice do you listen to daily? Candace said, I know that's right. Out here this summer, right? My cousin Bernice says, summertime. All right. Listen, by the end of this week, I want you to know that you're no longer hiding, you're no longer performing, and you're no longer sitting in silence. Okay. You are becoming. And it's all begins with the truth that you tell yourself. So let's put this in practice. I want you to write down one lie that you no longer choose to believe and replace it with a truth and say that out loud. All right. Your journal for today is what belief did you adapt to just to survive, and what truth are you reclaiming? All right. And our affirmation for today, listen, my voice is rooted in truth. My truth is safe, and my story is what? Valid. All right. My story is valid. And the intention that we're going to set for today and over the weekend is today I speak my truth. I speak truth into my heart. All right. Hold on to your heart. Okay. And our bonus challenge for today, every time a critical thought arises, I want you to pause and say, that's an old voice. And here is my truth. All right. And here's my truth. You always know I'm going to do this call, challenge, and charge. So I'm calling, I'm asking you today, what truth are you reclaiming today about yourself. All right. The challenge is speak your truth out loud at least once today and over this weekend. And even if your voice shakes with that, all right, even if you get nervous, and then your charge is go speak to yourself like someone you love. All right. Go speak to yourself like someone you love. Again, I'm going to post that video tomorrow. You are not the lie you believed. I will see you guys again on Monday. Listen, if this session um, if this session resonated with you and you're walking away with some insight on today, I want you to drop a fire in the chat for me and let's celebrate our growth together. You already know if you can shape it in your mind, okay, you can have it in your life. I want you to know that I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. And I will see you tomorrow, okay? I will see you on Monday for that life lesson. And we're talking about non negotiables. Yeah, unlock. We're talking about the non-negotiables, all right? Noticing the patterns in non-negotiables next week. So I will see you next week as we continue to talk about how to unlock your potential. All right. I love you. I'll see you for that life lesson. Till later.